I read to you from Exodus chapter 20, verse 16. One phrase. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. In another translation, it reads, Thou shalt not lie. Let us pray together. Gracious God, we ask you to quiet our hearts so that we may concentrate on your word and what your word has to say to us. Be with us in our speaking and in our hearing. In Christ's name. A high school student was walking down the hallway and saw her best friend approaching. She smiled and greeted her friend, but the friend ignored her and walked on by without so much as a word. Upset and puzzled, she asked another friend, What's wrong with Donna? She snubbed me in the hall. Oh, said the friend, she probably heard what Betty's saying about you. She said that you were flirting with her boyfriend. Well, I didn't flirt with her boyfriend, the girl said. You were actually even there with me when we were talking in the hallway. I know it, said the friend, but that's what Betty's saying, and you know how rumors go. And there was a young executive who had worked hard to show that he was ready for a significant promotion. He interviewed for a brand new position that had been created. He thought he had done well in the interview. He expected to be offered a new job, but he was not selected. He went in to talk with his supervisor. He wanted to know why. He asked his supervisor if he'd be honest with him. Well, it's hard to say exactly, said the supervisor, but I'm sure that the rumors about your substance abuse didn't help any. Substance abuse? Exclaimed the shocked young man. What are you talking about? I don't have a substance abuse problem. The supervisor was studying the young man's face. He was looking deeply into his eyes. And then rather nonchalantly, he just shrugged his shoulders. He said, it's always hard to tell about rumors, you know. Maybe somebody just started that rumor just to keep you from getting the job. Then there was a stay-at-home mother, a wife, who had decided that she would place her teaching career on hold for a few years in order to spend time with her children. When the children had finally settled into elementary school, the mom decided that it was time to return to teaching. She applied for a position in a private school near their home. After the second interview, she was told that she had not gotten the position. Understandably disappointed, she went to a neighbor who served on the school board to see if she could find out why she wasn't hired. Well, apparently, someone had heard that the hopeful teacher had some emotional issues and had to be hospitalized recently. The board was concerned that she might not be strong enough to deal with a classroom. I don't have emotional issues, said the mother. A few months ago, I was having some physical challenges, and my doctor put me in the hospital to run some tests. They got to the bottom of the problem, changed my medication. I've been doing great. It had nothing to do with emotions. Well, I'm sorry, said the neighbor. You know how our superintendent and school board is. They get overly sensitive about rumors. I suppose I should have come and talked to you after I heard it, but I didn't. Oh, the mischief caused and the damage done as a result of false rumors. Is it any wonder? Is it any wonder in the New Testament book of James that the author actually compared the tongue to a torch that is carried into a dry forest where it ignites a fire that burns out of control and destroys everything in its path? It's really not surprising, is it, that God decided to address the issue of truth-telling and honesty and integrity in the Ten Commandments. The ninth commandment is God's prohibition against lying and slander and gossip. Now, if we were to back away the phrasing and we were to reframe it in a little more positive terminology, we might come up with this phrase: tell the truth. Just tell the truth. The commandment was originally intended as a statement against false accusation in a court of law. The people of Israel were governed by judges who were responsible to preside over disputes between people. The Ten Commandments were given by God as a way for God to participate in the establishing of rules for justice and morality within society. God declared that judgment would fall upon those who gave false testimony against another person. But it wasn't just the Ten Commandments, was it? Throughout the Scriptures, Old and New alike, God's message to humanity is clear. Lying and gossip and false reports were the most detestable of sins that anyone could commit. Matter of fact, if you will recall, Jesus was actually brought to trial and executed over a diet of lies and fabrications. The workers of evil had succeeded in having the Son of God put to death on false charges. Pilate, the Roman governor, was caught in the middle. On one side, he heard all the religious leaders accusing Jesus of plotting to overthrow the government. But all Jesus was guilty of was preaching and teaching. All he was guilty of was showing love and grace. He healed the sick. He restored sight to the blind. He made the lame walk again. But he was dangerous, they claimed. Pilate didn't know what to believe. So he asked Jesus, "Is it true? The religious people are all saying you're dangerous. Are you dangerous?" Jesus answered the question by calling Pilate's bluff. "What do you think?" Jesus said. "You have heard the evidence. It's your decision." Pilate, confused, misguided, and spineless, asked what has become now to be an epic question. What is truth? What is truth? Pilate didn't have the capacity to understand truth. He participated in killing the truth. Pilate has gone down in history as one of the most pathetic characters of all time. Why? Because because he could not identify or stand up for truth. And yet, truth triumphed in the end, didn't it? Truth always wins in the end. Easter wasn't just about the triumph over death, hell, and the grave. Easter was the triumph of truth over evil. Friends, people of faith ought never be servants of evil by speaking anything but truth. Remember how Paul instructed the Ephesian church? He said, put aside all falsehood and let everyone speak the truth in love. You see, honoring God and worshiping God and loving God and allowing God's character to influence and shape our character means that God's love has become our highest ethic. And the practicality of that ethic means that we are seekers of truth. We desire only to speak truth. But unfortunately, the ancient problem of bearing false witness has not died out with the passing of time. Bearing false witness is as healthy today as it was in the day of Moses. Matter of fact, isn't it quite interesting? Isn't it quite interesting that we're talking about this subject on this particular Sunday after one of the most contentious, ugly seasons of political jockeying that we have ever lived through? Tell the truth. Imagine it. Even though for all these centuries we have learned to seek truth and embody truth and speak the truth in love, still, after all this time, we have a hard time controlling our mind, and we have a harder time controlling our tongue. It wasn't long ago that a pastoral colleague told me a story of conflict within his congregation. Because of gossip and lies and innuendo, a crisis was birthed in that congregation that should not have been a crisis at all. A few folks in the church had gotten upset over false information. They began to call one another on the phone. They began to meet secretly, plotting their strategy to unnerve that congregation. Someone started a group. And a few people got angry because they believed the rumor. The pastor and lay leaders finally called a congregational meeting to deal with the crisis. Well, a new Christian, brand new Christian, who had recently joined their church, was excited about her new faith. She decided to attend that meeting. She listened to the people. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. She was actually crestfallen at how people were talking to one another. She began to cry. Her tears made the congregation feel rather uncomfortable. She finally said to the people, "I've made a serious mistake in my life. I came to this church and became a Christian because I thought it was better. What I'm hearing from you is worse than I hear in my day job. I'm leaving." And she headed for the door. Fortunately, someone in the group had the courage to ask her to wait for a minute. people realized what they had done. They began apologizing for their behavior to the woman, but also to each other. And it actually ended up being a great gift to that church. Truth helps. You see, friends, when we do not seek the truth and tell the truth, we're bearers of false witness. When we only tell part of the truth, especially if that part leaves a false impression in someone else, then we are bearers of false witness. When we smother the truth with silence and we cowardly allow truth to be defeated by not speaking what we know to be the truth, we are bearers of false witness. Tragically, I think people are more accepting today, actually willing to overlook falsifications, fabrications, and misrepresentations of truth. It happens probably more than any of us can even imagine. So how is it? How is it that we are to faithfully fulfill the directive of the 9th commandment? Here it is. Discern the truth. Listen to the truth. Test the truth. And then tell the truth. But friends, the Christian obligation actually goes one step further than just simple truth telling. Paul said, speak the truth in love. You see, love seeks truth. Love rejoices in truth. Love values the truth above everything else. Don't want to bear false witness against your neighbor. Instead, do as Jesus instructed us. You shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Thanks be to God. Thank you for being with us this morning. We trust that God has spoken to you through the music, through the singing, through reading, through participating and welcoming new members. Whatever has spoken to you, allow it to be a voice from God. Certainly that last phrase that we sang 3 times, the Lord hath yet more light and truth to break forth from God's Word. That's a powerful phrase. There is yet more truth for us to discover. So may you go forth from this place ready to discover that truth, being instruments of truth to all